The ACC championship game provides an interesting fare as SMU makes it all the way to the title game of the conference in their first year of play in the ACC. Clemson, of course, looking for an eighth ACC championship in 10 years. Steve Merrill's here from Wager Talk to help us break it down. Steve, Clemson started out, as you just mentioned to me, as the opening line favorite, but SMU has flipped it now to a 1.5-point favorite on their side.
Yeah, and earlier this week it was as high as 2.5. Never got to that key number of 3, and now we're seeing mostly 1.5s, a few 2s out there still as well. Let's start with my database simulation. 10,000 games simulated, and on average, I got SMU winning by exactly 2 points. So I agree with this line. I think it's spot on where it should be. I think SMU as a dog at the opener last Sunday was a bad price. But even at a fair line, I would still rather have SMU in this game as long as it stays below that key number of 3. I think on the surface, it looks very strange to see, obviously, SMU in the ACC title game, and to see them favored over Clemson looks even stranger. I mean, what would this line have been just a few seasons ago, Mark? Would have been over 3 touchdowns probably, and now they're a slight favorite. But when you really start crunching the numbers and you take the names off the teams, you realize that Clemson's an overvalued commodity this year. In fact, they're 1-5 against the point spread their last 6 games. 1-5 ATS their last 6. Only cover was against Virginia Tech during that span. SMU actually has better numbers overall this season, not just in overall seasonal games, but when you look at the ACC conference games only, it's pretty telling as well. This is a Clemson team that in ACC games this year is plus 16. SMU is plus 19, or plus 15 versus plus 19 points per game, margin of victory. Clemson also gives up 5.1 yards per play. SMU gives up 4.6. SMU gains 6.8. Clemson gains 6.0. So in conference games alone, SMU's been better on both sides of the ball, and they're also the more balanced offensive attack this season. SMU's averaging over 9 yards per pass. Clemson's averaging 7.4 against teams that have allowed 7.5. SMU's given up just 6.5 yards per pass. So I think this Clemson pass attack is very mediocre. They rely heavily on the running game, but then you look at SMU's rush defense, it's one of the best in the country, giving up 2.8 yards per carry. I like the matchup here, and even though it's spot on my projection, I still think there's value with SMU at -2.
Yeah, the best teams on Clemson's schedule, they just have not been able to show up in defeat when looking at Georgia, South Carolina, and Louisville. And SMU's had a nice game against Louisville, winning at home or on the road at Louisville by a touchdown in 4 matchups that have common opponents. SMU has played much better against those opponents. For example, a blowout win against Pitt as well, as Clemson narrowly squeaked by Pitt by 4 points. You can catch Steve's work at Wager Talk. Of course, it's the NFL, it's college football, and the NBA with Steve at wagertalk.com.